We are all fascinated by the beauty and the luxury of all these private jets we see in the airports around the world. But we don't know what's behind this amazing job. This is Adnan Baranbo, and you are listening to a new episode of AVIAPRENEURS podcast. My episode today is about private jet interior design. And who's better to speak about this than my friend, Mr. Jean-Pierre Alfano, a leading expert on private jet interior design globally. Good day, Jean-Pierre. Thank you for joining me today.
Hello, Adnan. Thank you for hosting me. I'm very honored to be part of the show. And I hope we make it interesting for your audience.
I'm sure of that. Thanks for your time and interest. I appreciate it. So Jean-Pierre, you are an aviapreneur from France. Originally, you are from the beautiful Tuscany in Italy. You have a master's degree in industrial design and engineering from France, and you're currently managing AirJet design. You are an IASA airworthiness and cabin safety compliance expert since 2007. And in 2009, you created AirJet Designs, a luxury design studio specialized in the interior design of private jets and luxury yachts interiors, where you are using your technical experience and knowledge in expressing your artistic creativity. I'm very happy to have you with me, Jean-Pierre. So let's start about your story. How did you end up specializing in this very important but very niche aspect of the private jet industry, interior designs of private jet?
Well, Adnan, it's the opportunities of life that have taken me to lead that path. As many people, I think, in the industry, I was not imagining 30 years ago to do the job I'm doing now. But, you go from opportunities to opportunity and you end up where you are. But basically, my story is, I think, simple. I was always interested in knowing how things are done, and I've always had an artistic side on me that I expressed a little bit late in my life. During my studies, I was taken through the path of, design and engineering, but more engineering design and artistic design at first. But during my studies, I studied both subjects, which are industrial design and engineering, with a specialty in structures and mechanical things, basically. And the opportunities of life, took me first in the US, where I had my first job experience in the US, but that was in the space industry. And then in 2000, at the end of 2000, I decided to come back to France and create my own consulting company. So with a partner of mine who I worked with in the US, we decided to set up our own company at the time. So that was 22 years ago already, and it doesn't make me any younger, but and so
makes you wiser.
Maybe. So we ended up in Toulouse and started working gradually with people in Toulouse involved in VIP aircraft completions around the Airbus, activity that was. At the time, there were two centers that were doing wide body and narrow body completions, which were EADS Sogerma in Bordeaux, and the other company in Toulouse, which became Airbus Corporate Jet Center, which now closed in terms of completions. But through my company, I was involved a lot in private aircraft modification and completion projects, mostly on Airbus aircraft. And the first orientation of my activity was more on the compliance, airworthiness, certification aspect, very little design engineering at the time. But I always wanted, to work in the inception of a project, when you work on the beginning, on the first stages of the project, it makes it, for me, intellectually and professionally speaking, much more exciting. So I decided in 2009, based on that experience, to go more into the artistic side of things instead of pursuing, doing airworthiness, and all the technical aspects of the subject, which for me, I kind of, I don't know it all. You always learn in our line of business, but I did, so many projects, and I was involved, on those aspects so much that I wanted to really to come back to my first aspirations in terms of professional position, which was really doing industrial design and work more on the creative side.
This is an amazing story and a very long journey. And looking at this very beautiful private jet interior in your background, I'm sure I now understand why you're fascinated about this area of private jet design. But thinking of your journey, is this required? You pass through so many steps. Is this required for each and everyone who wants to specialize in private jet interior design? What is the learning path? What is the experience path required for these professionals willing to follow a career in the private jet interior design?
So I would say that the learning path is you need a strong base with education oriented towards design, and it can be industrial design, it can be interior design, it can be also engineering design. But you need to be aware that the industry is a niche. So if you have the objective of having a career, you should be aware that being a niche of the aviation industry in general, opportunities are limited. So you need to build a reputation over time. For me, the best advice I would give to people who want to, become interior designers oriented towards private jet is to have a degree in industrial design or interior design, and the first experience with a company of the industry. So the easiest way for me to do that is to go towards big companies of the industry, Gulfstream, Airbus, Boeing, or the completion centers who are active in that business, to get a first practical experience of what it is, what you need to design, and also what are the dynamics of the industry. And secondly, I think people should be aware that in order to be successful on the long term, it's very important to gain knowledge, either academic or hands-on, and experience, on the industrial aspects of aircraft interiors, which is besides the design, you need to be you need to have knowledge on the manufacturing processes, the history of the industry, the current state of the art, and the airworthiness aspects, engineering, and also the costs and the overall process from design to completion, and also maintenance and service. Because working in an aircraft is particular to the nature of the airplane. So you need to address a certain clientele. You need to work with industrial actors who are gonna, make a seat or make a piece of cabinet, and also take the aircraft in the hangar, strip it, work on the airplane and so on. And as a designer, you're not only involved on the design aspect, but you're also involved on the execution aspect of things. So that's very important.
So briefing what you mentioned, private jet interior design is actually different. It's different from designing a commercial airliner. It's different from designing a yacht, and it's different from designing a villa or a house.
Yes, absolutely. There are many aspects considering the interior of a private airplane. If we, and private airplane also is, when you say a private jet, you have many types of private jets, as you know, you have small size, mid-size, long range, and also you have commercial airliner airframes that are converted into private aircraft, such as Boeing and Airbus. But if I leave aside, Boeing and Airbus aircraft type, for example, I would say the main characteristic of a private aircraft is the limited cabin space. This is what really is important in terms of design. So when you work with a limited space, in comparison to larger interiors, you mentioned a villa or, you know, a big yacht, for example. Well, when you work on a small space, small details become very obvious and very important to the eye. So it starts from the design process, but it also goes into the fabrication and the outfitting of the interior. When I say small details, for example, is you know, alignments of different pieces of furniture inside the cabin. If you look at a cabinet, you want to have gap uniformity, and also on the seat, you need to have quality stitching, you know, alignment and consistency in the design. So this is, in that aspect, the interior of small to mid-sized jets can be compared to the interior of cars, in which, you know, in a car, you have upholstery, fabrication, assembly quality that are done. I don't say they're perfect, but they're aiming at, I would say, perfection, to ensure the best sentiment and quality perception from the passengers. So in an aircraft, the quality perception of the passengers translates into the impression of safety, because as you can understand, if you go in a private jet and the seats are, you know, not well maintained, or, you know, even in a new airplane, maybe you have a different stitch alignment from one seat to the other, you have different quality, you know, little details. It will lead you to believe, even if it's not conscious, it can be unconscious, but it will lead you to believe that the interior and the product was not looked after or was not designed properly. So you can have a doubt, you know, or, you know, some negative feelings about the product. So this is, I think, for me, a very important aspect of it.
Indeed, it's very interesting.
Yeah. As I tell clients sometimes, you know, when we're involved on the design project, you know, for us, for example, making a perfect rendering, a perfect design, you know, with 3D software nowadays, it's quite easy. I mean, it takes talent, it takes know-how, and everything. But when you go from the rendering and the drawing step to making the interior, you realize that you need to integrate in your design process all the, you know, all the difficulties of making a curved shape, or, you know, something that will look good on the design board, but that will be really, really difficult to make in real life. So that's important for me. Then, you know, when you, on a more general basis, when you look at the interior of an airplane, if you take all airplane sizes, what's really differentiating from a yacht or a villa or any type of other design is the specific nature of the vehicle. So I'm talking about airworthiness regulations. For example, you need to account for unexpected turbulence in the cabin, safety of passengers in case of emergency landings and evacuation scenarios, safety of passenger in case of fire in the cabin, etc. You know, one example of that is very typical. Sometimes, you know, people ask me, why do the seats of a private jet, they always look the same, you have the same styling over and over. One very important reason for that is that the seats, we can style, as designers, you know, we will style the foam of the seat and the shape of the seat, but we cannot have an Eames chair, for example, inside an airplane that will be certified for takeoff and landing as of now, because the structure, the basic structure of the airplane. So when I'm talking about the basic structure, I'm talking about what's behind the foam and the leather or the fabric you have when you sit on the seat. That structure has been designed and certified to ensure the safety of the passenger. So to make sure that in case of an emergency landing, and a hard turbulence, for example, the seat will stay attached to the airframe so that the passenger, when you have your seatbelt attached, you will not fly off in the cabin. You know, when you have a, you know, an extreme, you know, event that can happen very rarely, but it can happen in an airplane. So that's one example. But we could come up with several of them. And another example is the weight and balance. I would say the aircraft operational and performance requirement. I wanted to mention the weight and balance, for example. So the weight of an airplane is very important for performance, for fuel consumption and range and those considerations. So when we design the interior, we have a weight target, or some weight, I would say, good practice that we use on a constant basis. So that's one of the reasons why the interior cabinetry of an airplane is made of lightweight honeycomb composite panels that we typically cover with a finished material such as wood, veneer, or fabric. So those are, the main differentiating aspects of airplanes compared to other interiors you can see, when you work as an interior designer.
Thank you for the eye-opening clarification. Actually, for us as private jet professionals, but not experts in the interior design, it's very interesting to learn about for example, the minimalist principle, where you have to do much with little space. Or that design is not only about beauty, it should at the same time take into consideration the safety and the technical specifications of the airplane. This is very interesting perspective. Thank you for sharing it. You just mentioned, Jean-Pierre, that to make it in the private jet interior design industry, you need to build a reputation. It's a very niche and very small market. So you need to have a name in order to make it in this industry. So what about yourself and your career? What differentiates you from the other private jet interior designers out there in the market?
Well, I think the big differentiators, for us, and when I say us, it's me and my team, because behind me, I have a team of people that I work with when we have a project is, we have the ability, we're different because we have the background and ability to address design projects with a 360% knowledge of airworthiness, engineering, fabrication, and completion requirements. Some design studios who are active in aviation sometimes, they are a more diversified studio. Some of them are big, some of them are small. But many of them, they address the artistic side of things, and they come up with a specification for the interior, for materials and everything. But then what happens when you don't necessarily address the aspects I mentioned correctly from the start is that you will end up in a project with engineers and people involved on the certification that will, ask you to address those aspects later in the project. So, on our side, we address those aspects from the start of the project. So we don't only provide creative design concepts, but we also make sure our design concepts will fit with, the requirements I mentioned earlier. So operational requirements, airworthiness, and also the financial and timeline requirements of the project. I think that's very important for us.
Definitely, it's a very important aspect. But does the client actually realize all these technical requirements and complications of private jet interior design? I mean, when a client comes to you, he will ask for his airplane to have a specific design. Sometimes they will have demands which are not easy to be achieved from the technical and safety perspective. So what is the journey? What is if we can say that the steps you follow working with the client to make his vision of his airplane interior a reality?
Okay, so, well, most of the times, the project we're involved in, the requests are not, so exotic, I would say, so, but the way I approach client requests is always by being honest with them. And, whatever we do, we always put forward that what we're doing will, the first question I usually ask is, what you want to do. And depending on the size of airplane, there's no generic answer to your question, I think, because it really depends on the size of airplane, the type of airplane we're looking into. Is it like a really private, or is it like a private/corporate airplane that will be chartered, or can you be used also for executives in a company? But what I would say is what I really emphasize from the start is we make things beautiful. But we always look into the practical aspects of things. Sometimes you see design concepts, with you see sometimes design studios looking at making a new concept for an interior with a lot of lighting, and a lot of LED screens everywhere. I don't want to criticize anybody in the industry, but from a practical standpoint, and also for a passenger comfort standpoint, you need to design the interior so that it's pleasant, it's to the taste of the owner, but also it's practical in terms of maintenance, and it will be done within the timeline that is imposed. And within the budget, sometimes we know from our experience, for example, you want to outfit a single aisle airplane like a 737, for example. If I start working on making a lot of unique parts for the ceiling and the sidewalls and everything, I will have costs that are related to the molds, because those parts will need molds to be made. So I know those non-recurring costs will be maybe a killer for the project, because making the molds will take time. It will cost an additional budget that the client doesn't necessarily need. So instead of doing that, we will look at making those specific elements of the cabin in a simpler way, still making it nice as an ensemble. But not going into very pretty but unrealistic interior proposals. I don't know if it's clear.
Absolutely, appreciate it. You just mentioned that you didn't get many exotic demands from private jet owners for their aircraft interior designs, but at the same time, I'm sure there was a story which is worth sharing. Some strange, weird private jet interior design request you have received from one of the owners. I'm sure the audience is willing to listen to one of these stories. Can you share one?
Yeah, but as I said, they don't come along very often. But on my side, we had a request some years back where the client really wanted a fish tank on board the airplane. So, we really entered into discussions, and, I am the type of guy that never says no on the first, exchange. And I say, okay, we can, unless you ask me to put like, I don't know, a chandelier, I will say no right off the bat, because for me, a chandelier is not possible. But a fish tank, okay, from a technical standpoint, we looked at it, and, we sat down with my team and we came up with a design proposal for the fish tank. Everybody in the industry, when we showed, this was where, people don't tell you you're crazy, but, but you see it sometime in the, in the feedback you get from some people. But that fish tank, we looked at what were the implications of putting a fish tank on board. So we decided to put it over the central wind box of the airplane to minimize weight and balance issues. That fish tank weight budget was equivalent to the weight budget you have in a galley of an A320. So it was about 1 ton, with the water and everything. So we designed it so you can have a fish tank, but it was thin, so to minimize the amount of water in there. And it was installed on top of a credenza that would contain all the systems you need to support the fish life. So filtration, water heating, water circulation, and so on. So I would say for me, that was maybe the most exotic, design I was involved in since I started, because it was really an exception compared to the daily routine jobs we get.
But that design became a reality. It was actually made.
Unfortunately not. No. Unfortunately not, because the costs, and the owner, he decided to, not the owner, the clients, he decided to not pursue that avenue. And, eventually he bought another airplane, brand new, which was different, but, and he didn't have a fish tank on board, but, he realized that was a little bit too much. Too much also in terms of operational maintenance, because if you have fish there, you need to have a person who takes care of the fish. Yeah, it makes it a nightmare to maintain.
Yeah, I imagine. Luckily he changed his mind. So so Jean-Pierre, I want to go back to the time when you were still a technical expert, and then you decided to move ahead and set up your own business. What was the lighting moment? What was the story of you deciding to change path, change career, and move from being an employee, a technical expert working for a business, to starting your own business? How was the journey?
Well, I saw a lot of being involved as a technical expert. I would see the work of other designers, and again, during my studies, I studied industrial design, and initially I wanted, before going the path of aviation, I always thought of becoming a car designer, but the opportunities of life, I wanted to do a specialty in car design after my engineering master's, but I didn't, do it because I had an opportunity to go to the United States, and I took that opportunity because I thought it was good for me. And, then, you have opportunities, you go on with your life. And anyway, so I think the moment was when I went to a trade show, the Hamburg trade show in Germany, and I met a company at the time that was a Chinese company who wanted to design an aircraft seat. And so, I saw that there was, so we designed, we started designing the seat. I had, a moment where I said, for me, it's good to start with the seat design and explore also other opportunities. Being at trade shows and so on, I met aircraft owner representatives, and I got a little bit aware of the opportunities in the sector. And I said, I think, aside from engineering, because I still had the engineering design company at the time, I think it's a good moment for me to really, put some effort into creating my studio and focus really on designing interiors for aviation, because I had, a network of people who could support us, on all aspects that, we couldn't necessarily do internally. So little by little, we gained experience on small projects, mostly refurbishment projects. We did a nice project almost at the beginning of the studio for a VIP kit on board an A319, for an airline company. The owner wanted to have one of the aircraft that was part of the fleet of his airline company as a private aircraft. So I designed the interior of that, VIP kit that was designed to be installed on the airplane within 72 hours. So basically the front rows of the airplane would be taken out, and we would install VIP seats, high-low tables, and things like this. So then, it takes a lot of effort and I would say energy, obviously, to as you know, to grow a company and to grow a brand and to grow a reputation. So I think, to answer your question is just the opportunities of life that led me to that path, because I was always interested in, designing, creating But gradually I was at the beginning of my career was taken, to the technical sides of things, and I really love aviation. So I don't know, it's really a fascinating industry to work in.
Definitely, it is. And this technical side actually gave you experience and gave you a background, which is very important and necessary for the design success. You mentioned about the challenges and the difficulties and the efforts you put. I'm sure you have learned so many lessons from these efforts and from these difficulties you had to work hard to conquer till you grew your company and you made it a success. What lessons, what recommendations do you share with the aviapreneurs listening to us about how to make a successful business in the aviation industry?
There's so many things we could say, and then, as you know, but okay, if I try to summarize, I think the first thing for me is to meet people and always try to expand your network. I think that's very, very important. Then, always be aware that you need to have a reliable network of people, of suppliers, partners that you can count on. A business is not only one person, one person will take the center stage, to do PR and communications. My photos is always on, articles, editorial articles, and so on. But I really, I'm grateful, and I really, realize how important it is to work with, to have people that you can trust, that you can delegate to, and that you can count on for all aspects, of the business. Then I would say it's important to keep in mind when you start a business and when you want to grow it, is to build a recognized brand and a positive reputation. So, as you know, in business, sometimes you have bad things happening to you, whether it's your fault or not, but everybody makes mistakes and so on. And sometimes, somebody you were counting on to supply you something, or, in my case, for example, do renderings for us or whatever, they had a problem, we cannot deliver on time. So it's really important to be aware that we need to leave a positive reputation behind us, because it always follows us until we retire. So then I would say always deliver what you promise and be consistent. You need to dare to be bold and be different from the crowd, because we live in a world of uniformity. A lot of people, do what the other guy is doing, but they're kind of, doing it a little better and so on. But I think it's really, and from the start, I wanted to be different from what was out there. And lastly, I would say aviation being a small world, always good to people, especially employees, because when they grow and leave the organization, life is not, life in a company is not a lifetime marriage, so people come and go. And when they leave your organization, they will likely end up in other companies and carry your brand reputation with them. And, so it's very important to be good with people.
Very valuable lessons. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jean-Pierre. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your experience. We learned a lot about this fascinating aspect of private jet interior design. Thank you for your time and experience and knowledge shared.
Thank you, Adnan. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all the aviapreneurs listening and watching us today. I hope you enjoyed this journey in this fascinating, beautiful, and interesting aspect of flying private jet. I would like to thank Jean-Pierre with you all, and I look forward to seeing you again next week with another episode and another aviapreneur. Have a great day.